if I would, Judge, because you said, how could this be political? After the neutering is take place, he wants to put it in a jar on the new city manager's desk. He's not saying, you know, we want to just do this to do this. This is a symbolic issue. I want this on as a reminder of what happens to an unelected city manager who interferes and compromises the integrity of our city elections and uses police intimidation.
Well, what you're ignoring is how the jar and its contents get there.
Well, and he said
he has to be separated from his genitalia, and the genitalia has to be put in a jar to put on John Fitzwater's desk.
I'm not.
Are you
but
kidding?
It's a political, but what I'm getting at is
that's
it's like
saying,
I want to kill the president. Now that's political as well as personal. If you go to assassinate a president, if you shoot someone, you say, I think that's what should happen. Obviously, you're not trying to kill him because he's anything other than the president. This is the city manager that he's unhappy with. Again, what I'm saying is this is not a personal dispute between these two gentlemen from the standpoint of A doesn't like B.
I don't know how more personal you could get.
Well, what I'm getting at is it's his function as city manager that my client has complaining about. What he does, how he handles his job, what he does and doesn't do. It's not that he doesn't like Mr. Deutsch because Mr. Deutsch's dog, you know, urinates on his grass, or he's a lousy neighbor, or that he even knows him personally, or that he cheats at bowling. It's Mr. Deutsch, the city manager.
Mr. Joyce cheats at bowling?
No, I'm saying it's not any of those reasons. It's nothing personal with regard
how
to
do you cheat at bowling?
I guess you just don't write the score down right. I don't know. But
actually everybody to close their eye.
His problems with Mr. Deutsch relate to Mr. Deutsch's employment and his performance of his job.
Okay.
All of the things that he's suggesting is because of his acts as a public official.
And I have no problem with your client advocating the termination of employment or the separation of Mr. Deutsch from the employment of the city of Bowie. But I think the problem comes in when you're talking about separating his body parts and putting them in a mason jar.
Well, and again, Judge, you know, there is the issue is where do you draw the line? I mean,
well,
that's why the First Amendment says this.
That's why we're discussing it.
Right, and I think that in a case where there is, you know, no eminent issue, where it's simply what he says is whether or not that is harassment in a context of a political dispute with regard to the running of the city government, which is what this is, and there's no question about that. If you have to read the whole email, not just some of the offensive part. When you look at that is First Amendment speech. It's always hard. I mean, First Amendment protects obscenity. Who likes obscenity? I mean, you know, but nevertheless, that's what the First Amendment is there for. Because we don't want to start down that road. Today, it's what Mr. Dom says. The next time somebody says, I think you ought to smack him,
let me ask
can't
you
say
this.
that either.
If the purpose of that paragraph that's the focus of our discussion right now is to advance the political dialogue, how does that paragraph do that? Paragraph.
I think that this paragraph indicates to anyone who gets it that this is somebody who is personally extremely upset at the frustration he has experienced at trying to change some of the functions and some of the patterns and some of the practices of the city government. And you know what he's trying to say, and again, you know, this was the language that he chose, but what he was trying to say was, and in the event that this person is separated, I think the next person that comes by should see that we expect higher conduct and we expect better performance, and this is what happens to those who don't. It's all figurative. And again, I'm not suggesting to you that it was the wisest choice of words. Obviously, had it been a different choice of words, we probably wouldn't be here. But I do think that you know, just like the Nazis marching down the streets of Skokie, whether you like the message or not, and none of those Nazis had a good message when they were told they could march down the streets of a Jewish section of Chicago, that just like that happened, you know, that you have a right to express an opinion regarding public officials, not political, but public official, and sometimes the way you do it is not artful, it's not polite, but if it's not inciting immediate harm You got the right to do it, and that's our country, and that's democracy's. I'm speaking. You're a mayor, you know. I'm not trying to.
Used to be a mayor.
Right. I mean, and politics is sometimes rough and tumble, and you have to put up with a certain amount of rude behavior, and much of it is protected. I'm not saying it's polite, but I'm saying that as a public official, sometimes you're just going to have to deal with rude. Now, you should not have to deal with something that is going to, you can't stalk someone. You certainly can't threaten them with so that you feel like you're going to shoot me. I mean, these things. But to have somebody say, I think, and if I may, we're all grown-ups here. To have somebody say, I think I got to cut his nuts off. I don't think that having said that in the context of somebody who's a public official, in the body of an entire email talking about why they should be fired and what they've been doing wrong over the years, I don't think that is the harassment that is intended under this statute, particularly when they have a specific exception written into the statute, which I'm sure is to comply with the constitutional requirement, that the statute does not apply to peaceful activity intended to express a political view or provide information to others.
Fine.
His political view may not have been expressed politely.
That gets us back to my original question.
But I'm saying,
how does this paragraph advance the political discourse between these two people?
because what he's saying is, I think I ought to cut the guy's nuts off and get him out of here. And I'm not saying that's a nice way to do it.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that's protected political free speech. And sometimes if you're a public official, you're going to hear that kind of stuff.
Well, then somebody who says, I advocate the assassination of President X, and if that doesn't work, then we ought to vote him out of office. That one phrase is not subject to getting the Secret Service.
They may, and I think they should. And I think they should watch that person carefully. But under the Supreme Court decision of Brandenburg versus Ohio, unless he's doing something to actively pursue that assassination, unless he's, in some way furthering that thought, the mere fact that you say, I think somebody should kill President X, or I'd like to kill President X, that in and of itself is not enough under the free speech clause of the Constitution. That's your personal right to express.
Okay. Well, let me re-ask this question in a slightly different way. How can this paragraph not be anything other than purposely designed to annoy Mr. Deutsch? How does it not?
It may even annoy John Rouse, because the last sentence
right. I saw
something that John Rouse doesn't have to worry about this whole problem, but for different reasons. Judge, the free speech rights of the Constitution don't protect people from annoyance. I have no doubt that those Nazis annoyed every Jew in Skopje 20 years ago when they walked down those streets. And they didn't want to hear that message, and Lord knows I don't blame them. And my father and I never could see eye to eye on that issue, because I kept saying, oh, they got free speech right, and he said, I fought them in the 40s. I don't think they ought to be able to walk down the street and carry those signs. Nevertheless, that's what the free speech clause of our Constitution is all about. You may be a public official, you may be annoyed, but the mere fact that you may be annoyed by what somebody has to say about you, particularly when they're complaining about your performance. And this is not even, I didn't notice anything personal, and again, I understand how much more personal can it be, but realistically, I didn't notice that the issues he has with him involve how much money he made, what he did in his job. Those are the issues.
All fair.
Understand.
All fodder
and
for
the mere fact that
the political fire.
Right. The mere fact that someone then takes
a different level, which now gets us into whether or not he's annoyed. And if I'm listening carefully to Ms. Levan, who we haven't given an opportunity to talk much, he's going to bring up all these past instances.
If he gets it into evidence, a lot of it's going to be hearsay.
Which go into the history between these two gentlemen.